We are constantly being bombarded by problems that we face, and sometimes we can get completely overwhelmed. The story of the hummingbird is about this huge forest being consumed by a fire. All the animals in the forest come out, and they are transfixed as they watch the forest burning, and they feel very overwhelmed, very powerless, except this little hummingbird. It says, I'm going to do something about the fire. So it flies to the nearest stream, takes a drop of water, and puts it on the fire, and goes up and down, up and down, up and down, as fast as it can. In the meantime, all the other animals, much bigger animals like the elephant with a big trunk, could bring much more water. They are standing there helpless, and they are saying to the hummingbird, what do you think you can do? You're too little. This fire is too big. Your wings are too little. And you're big, so small, you can only bring a small drop of water at a time. But as they continue to discourage it, it turns to them without wasting any time and tells them, I am doing the best I can. And that, to me, is what all of us should do. We should always feel like a hummingbird.
After years of bearing witness to environmental degradation, the Salgados knew they could no longer simply remain observers. They had to do something.
Why not plant a forest? The forest we had before here. The first plantation we did it here and there.
When you come to Instituto Terra, you see 1 million trees together, and now big trees that you can embrace.
You see the birds. We have so many birds now.
In all this land around this planet, if we started to replant, in 10 years will be no more dead land.
When Pierre Rabhi looks at a desert, he sees an oasis.
Alors je suis allé donc au Burkina Faso pour la première fois en 81. Ma spécialité c'était de limiter la mort de la terre par la désertification. Et là, j'ai proposé ce qu'on appelle l'agroécologie.
His lifelong work in Africa has been to promote agroecology, an organic, biodiverse agriculture that combines scientific knowledge with traditional wisdom.
Ah voilà, je suis content.
Et aujourd'hui, il y a 100 000 paysans au Burkina Faso qui pratiquent les méthodes proposées en 81. On a calculé que simplement l'Éthiopie, cultivée correctement, nourrirait l'ensemble du continent africain.
Well, it wasn't long ago that Native Americans were living off this arrangement. They ate the prairie turnip, of course ate things out of the streams, and they also ate the bison and the prairie elk. Here was what we might call an original relationship with the universe. To build an agriculture as sustainable as the ecosystems we have destroyed is necessary and possible. What we're trying to do is build agriculture based on the way the ecosystems were 10,000 years ago. This prairie would be our library. What the soil scientists here are trying to do is to understand those dynamics below the surface that sustain what we harvest above.
Just to show you in one plant some of the diversity of root systems that we have. With a perennial, it allows this plant to come back each year from its root system. It doesn't have to be started each year from seed, and it doesn't have to grow its entire root system each year like an annual plant would have to do. Our annual crops, such as this native annual wheat, its root systems are much more shallow, so if it rains, carrying with it nitrogen, and that nitrogen ends up 10 feet down, this wheat plant can't get it. So we have to put on more nitrogen. That native perennial at 10 feet is able to grab it. This ain't doing it, this is.
This root diversity below ground, green diversity above the surface is going to be far more resilient to a change in the climate than the annual monocultures.
A lot of what we're talking about is going on below ground. So let's just go below ground. So here we have a nice soil pit. It's roughly 6 feet from the bottom of the pit up to the soil surface. Now, not all soils are this deep, obviously, but the thinner the soil, let's say we have bedrock right here, the thinner the soil, the more important it is to have the perennial roots to protect that soil. If you only have this much soil in which to grow your food and you lose several inches of it a year, it's not too many years and you're growing nothing.
Our goal is to have soil erosion go to zero. That's the first important step, as I see it, to begin the reconciliation for us as a species out of context.
When I started Navdanya with concern for the seed and its renewability and its fertility, I started it as my personal commitment, not knowing how many would join, no matter how long I would be able to continue this commitment in practicing farming that is first a service to the soil.
What Vandana Shiva and her colleagues do here is to collect and preserve the seed varieties, to share them with the surrounding farmers.
This is a sorghum.
So that the entire agricultural region regains biodiversity and is revitalized.
The only quality food that we can ever produce is food that is a byproduct of our relationship with the soil.
We will use vetch, we will use clover, and I'm going to broadcast them by hand. And while I'm broadcasting them by hand, I'm going to give each seed all of the energy of my soul and connect with all of my plants in my soil. It's so very important that we recognize that we're not separate from all of it.
What's happening here dictates what happens up here. And what happens up here also dictates what happens down here. They're totally connected. The below ground and above ground are totally connected ecologically.
A new generation is finding ways to change their relationship to dirt. One group of young city dwellers moved from Brooklyn to upstate New York to put down new roots.
We grow $20,000 per acre per year of vegetables, feeding thousands of people on what was a hayfield. And there's tons more of these fields all over this region.
We have been working together for 2 years now. This is such small time, small scale compared to most of the farms. But we're preserving the soil by doing it organically.
It's pretty amazing to have your hands in this matter right here, and it's all alive. Add a little water, add a little sunlight, and attend it a little bit, and hey.
At this point we have about 500 families who we supply vegetables to on a weekly basis.
Miriam and Benjamin have figured a way to make it work for themselves and for us. We have health care, which is pretty amazing. I mean, I have health care. I haven't had health care in a while. First drop-off is in Bay Ridge, and then we make it over to Greenwood Heights. Then we make it over to the Red Shed Community Garden. Giving food, the food you grew to people, is pretty awesome, you know?
Community-supported agriculture, or CSAs, provide fresh produce to subscribers.
In exchange for us providing them produce every week, they pay us a yearly subscription fee, and that money allows us to grow the food, buy seeds, buy equipment, take care of ourselves.
I think there are a lot of people trying to make efforts doing things like this, trying to give us a natural niche in a place that's pretty much concrete, you know. But, you know, you do what you can.
These are going to be going to Brownsville, Brooklyn. It's a lot of less fortunate families. It'd be really a good thing in the future if some of the families could actually come here and see the whole dirt process, because a lot of times in the city there's actually no dirt. You see everything is pretty much concrete.